testament to a political legacy. 100 years ago, Bernice Martin Matthews would not have been allowed to attend the school that is named after her today. This program will look at the political history of African Americans in Nevada and the evolution of change that allowed this school to be named after a local hero. When the Nevada Constitution was written in 1864, Black Americans were specifically prohibited from voting. Article 2 of the 1864 Constitution called for white male citizens to serve as electors within the new state. After some debate, the issues of separate schools for children of African descent was left out of this Constitution, but addressed later by the legislature. Schools were to be segregated along racial lines in an 1865 ordinance until a 1872 decision of the Nevada Supreme Court that forced the state to allow non-whites into public schools where no separate school had been established for Negroes, Mongolians, and Indians. Today we find the idea of segregated schools a foreign way of thinking, but in the 1800s it was not so uncommon. In Nevada, African Americans have never been a strong minority, with only 7% living in the state. Most of that population lived in the South, so naturally, that is where the black political power took root. The first real evidence of any black political presence began in the 1800s with the organization of the Colored Republican Club. In a statement issued in 1894, the club said, "We, the Colored Republican Club of Ormsby County, request all colored voters of the state to stand firm by the Republican Party as the best means of bettering their condition in the state at large." We have very little information about black politics in the late 1800s and early 1900s. According to docent Arlene Laffery, the missing information about black politics is no accident.
There's not a lot in the Reno newspapers of the time, or the Territorial Enterprise, or the Gold Hill News, for the simple reason that back in the 1800s, they didn't mention African Americans much, except in a derogatory way if somebody got arrested or whatever. Now in Elmer's book, he uses mostly the two African American newspapers that are out of San Francisco, the Pacific Appeal and the Elevator. They were the ones that picked up all the news about the fire of 1875 and the African Americans that lost property, and they listed the prices and different things. And they also used a lot of social events and different things for people like Sam Wagner, who was a wonderful African-American bootblack that lived up there for many years and died up there. And then there's also the different people that came up there and stayed. So you're not going to find too much except occasionally an obituary on that. They didn't even mention a whole lot for W.A.G. Brown, who had the Boston Saloon up there. Much has been written now, currently, on that. But back in the 1800s, you're not going to find hardly anything at all. But Elmer used exclusively the Pacific Appeal and the Elevator in his book, and you'll find a lot of references on that. And they're pretty much honest, everything that they did have. Unfortunately, we didn't do a lot here in Reno or the Territorial Enterprise for various other reasons.
Felt good about it. I learned a lot of new things about Reno that I probably never would have learned if I wouldn't have done